I'm Frank Morano, sitting in for John Tobacco, who's on assignment this morning. Well, yesterday, the political world was upended. The economic world was upended. And if you're watching the ticker on Wall Street right now, the stock market was upended when the president tweeted that he was going to be implementing a 5% tariffs on imports coming from Mexico. And it could go up to as much as 25% if something's not done about illegal immigration. Here to break that and the other political news of the day down, we have two very distinguished gentlemen from either side of the aisle. Jason Meister, who is a pundit, an author, and a member of the Trump 2020 Advisory Board, and Jeff Curzon, a former Democratic candidate for Congress and an attorney here in New York. Gentlemen, good morning. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
So, Jason, let me begin with you. Do you think all this hysteria, this kerfuffle, the hysterical reaction to the tariffs is justified?
I don't. I actually think this is exactly why President Trump was elected. This is unconventional business acumen, so to speak, in the White House. President Trump is trying to secure our border. The Democrats have failed to assist in that, and they've come with nothing to approach him with any reasonable measures. So what he's doing is he's putting the tariffs on these goods that are coming from Mexico, and he's basically putting Mexico on notice. They need to participate in securing the border, and they have the ability to do so. And the Democrats are also being put on notice. So if they're not happy with this tariff, then they're going to have to secure the border. Either the Democrats or Mexico is going to participate in securing the border.
Well, Jeff Curzon, somehow I think you may view things differently.
Well, rather than treat the symptom of this mass immigration north, I would rather look at the cause and say, what can the United States do to help the people of Central America so that they're more comfortable in their home country? And I think a lot of people fleeing Guatemala or Honduras, they actually don't feel safe in Mexico. There's some precedents in Europe for people who land in, say, Greece and then want to go to France. And maybe it's a debate about international law, whether these migrants have the right to continue on to the United States if they don't feel safe in Mexico. Other people say that they should stay in Mexico. I just don't see the expense of building a wall or even the expense of these tariffs, because it's ultimately going to hurt American companies that export
that import goods from,
export and import.
I know our sponsor, Question Tequila, they're panicked over this.
But this is not, we're talking about legal immigration versus illegal immigration. Let's not confuse the two things. President Trump is not against legal immigration, and it's constantly confused in the mainstream media.
But Jason, I know you're a guy, you're a constitutional conservative kind of a guy. Is this something that the president has the ability to do on his own? Isn't this really, even if you agree with the policy, really more the proper venue for Congress as the legislative branch?
Look, both Democrats and Republicans have failed to address this issue over many decades. The president is using unconventional measures to address the issue. It is an issue. We do need to secure our borders. Every other issue, other than immigration, we ask the question.
But he's not a monarch, right?
He's not a monarch, but he is the most powerful man in the free world, and what he's doing is completely within his powers.
Jeff, I know you are a supporter of Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang, correct?
Yes.
I know a lot of Bitcoin folks, a lot of cryptocurrency folks like a lot of what Andrew Yang has to say. How do you view the 2020 field as it stands now? It looks like Andrew Yang is still struggling to break through to that top tier, although he has qualified for that first debate. Who do you think is going to give President Trump the most run for his money?
Well, I predict Andrew Yang will win the Democratic primary. In a way, he's similar to Trump in that he's not a career politician. And if you look at the 25 Democratic contenders, there's only one who's not a career politician, and that's Andrew Yang. And the Bitcoin people like him because he's a data-driven guy. He's an entrepreneur. His campaign hat says math. And it's symbolic because decisions in government should be made based on data and science, not like just the whim of our president.
Jason, it is interesting. Andrew Yang seems to be one of the few Democratic presidential candidates that hasn't yet, in the aftermath of what Robert Mueller said the other day, called for the president's impeachment. Give me your reaction to the increasing number of Democratic candidates calling for his impeachment. And as a Trump supporter, who do you most want to run against? Who do you least want to run against?
So let me take the first question on. I think that the Democrats have ripped this country apart over the last couple of years on a fake paid-for dossier. So to use that dossier and the investigation that followed it with no evidence of collusion or obstruction to impeach a president would be basic suicide, political suicide for the Democrats. They would ensure President Trump re-election in 2020. That is why Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer haven't been pushing for the impeachment of the president. Having said that, who I would like to run against, I think any of the candidates that are out there right now are easy to win against. This president has achieved unbelievable success on the economy, on the Korean Peninsula. I mean, just take any issue, what he's done with Israel, moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. He has accomplished more in his first term than any president in modern history.
Jeff, are you an advocate of impeachment?
Well, I am, but not for the reason that the mainstream news media is going on about Russia. And, you know, Congressman Nadler, as chair of the Judiciary Committee, has been trying to get an unredacted version of the Mueller report. For me, Trump violated international law by twice attacking Syria without congressional approval, and that's another thing I like about Andrew Yang is that, you know, the power of the president to bring our armed services to another country to use violent and deadly force should be a serious, deliberate, thought out
so
equation.
you would have impeached President Obama for Libya as well, right?
Well, you know, I was a big Obama supporter, and one of the biggest things that disappointed me about his regime was the kill list. And, you know, a few hundred years ago, we had something called the Enlightenment, and, you know, everyone's supposed to be entitled to due process. And if you say, okay, this guy has a YouTube channel, he's shouting death to America, let's just drone him and kill him. He's an American citizen. So, you know, what if you say the wrong thing on your show, and then next thing you know, a drone buzzes out your window and poof. Like,
yeah, well, I am, for the record, if the president or any foreign powers are watching, formally requesting that I not be put on the kill list, and especially for anything any of the guests say. Let me ask you, Jason, speaking of military force, the big kerfuffle this week in terms of the USS John McCain. There was the rumor that somebody from the Pentagon said, hide the John McCain, the John S. McCain. The president says he didn't know anything about it. What does it say about an administration where people are so concerned that the president might be upset just by seeing a naval carrier's name?
Look, I think this is a lot to do about nothing. I think this is the mainstream media taking a story and running with it wild. The president said very clearly he was not aware of it. He also said he wouldn't have instructed this. But look, there's no putting this aside. There was bad blood between John McCain and the president for good reasons. I mean, John McCain killed healthcare in this country. John McCain was a very important part of the fake paid-for dossier that was the whole premise that threw us into a constitutional crisis over this nonsense Russian collusion hoax. So there's bad blood there, but the president was not aware of that.
Jeff, any thoughts on the USS John S. McCain controversy and whether or not President Trump or somebody close to him ordered that it be hidden from view?
I don't know a lot about it, but I tend to agree with Jason that it's a lot to do about nothing. You know, I don't see when I leave my building in the morning or return home at night. There's a shanty town developing in front of my house on Delancey Street. So, you know, the whole Russian collusion and you know, this John McCain thing, to me, is just like sideshow. Our politicians are not addressing poverty in America, the fact that 29% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. So people are going bankrupt when they get medical bills, you know, or, you know, just they're having to make serious choices between, do I want a roof over my head or do I want to eat today?
It sounds like you're making some of the same points Jason was making about how a focus on impeachment instead of policy actually could be a political loser for the Democrats.